Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla. Stay tuned for insights, impact, and inspiration right here on Channel Africa. Available on the Channel Africa app.
We're not just available on the Channel Africa app, we're also available on OpenView on the DSTV audio bouquet 802. That's where you can find us on OpenView channel 628. And of course, you can stream us live on YouTube. Reach out to us at Channel Africa 1 on social media. Welcome to it, 60 minutes of the very latest news in and around your world, whether you're listening, watching from the heart of Africa, from all corners of the globe. Your perspective is welcome. Do reach out to us. +27 63406 9126. We'd like to hear your perspective on some of the views that we carry.
Tsepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
And we start with our news headlines. The United Nations has launched its annual aid appeal, drastically limiting the amount it thinks it can raise. The UN's humanitarian chief, Tom Fletcher, said that at a time when politicians were boasting about cutting aid, it had been necessary to make critical choices. Speaking at the UN headquarters in New York, Fletcher hit out at global apathy about aid. He pointed out that the UN appeal for aid is just 1% of what the world actually spends on arms.
What do we need in order to save 87 million lives next year? We need protection for our work, we need that energetic peacemaking, and we need $23 billion.
And we move on to this. Uganda heading to elections early next year. Tensions starting to build up. The United Nations has warned of a widening clampdown on the opposition. Uganda's opposition candidate, Bobi Wine, has reported that he was beaten alongside his aides and supporters by security forces while campaigning in the country's north this weekend. The authorities are threatening to shut down major social media platforms, a move seen elsewhere on the continent, as Michael Baleke reports.
The United Nations says Uganda is tightening its grip on critics ahead of the 2026 general elections. It reports mass arrests targeting opposition supporters, especially Bobi Wine's National Unity Platform. The UN wants investigations into alleged intimidation, disappearances and torture, claims the government denies. There are also growing fears of digital censorship. Uganda's electoral body says it may block social media if misinformation persists online. Uganda shut down the internet ahead of the 2021 polls. Political analysts warn another shutdown could fuel tensions like the unrest witnessed during recent elections in Tanzania.
The head of the Israeli military has said the position to which Israeli forces have withdrawn in Gaza is a new borderline. The so-called yellow line leaves Israel in control of more than half of Gaza now. Lieutenant General Ayel Zamir's comments appear at odds with the US ceasefire plan, which envisages a gradual withdrawal of Israeli forces. The BBC's Sebastian Ashra has more.
The yellow line marks the division between the more than 50% of Gaza that Israel currently controls from the rest of the territory where Hamas still operates and almost all the people of Gaza are located. It's intended to be temporary, but Palestinians fear that it could become a permanent dividing line. Even though it's not official Israeli policy, the description of the line as a new border is becoming more common in Israeli discourse. But any government move to act on this would put the second phase of a ceasefire plan in serious jeopardy.
The Department of Home Affairs in South Africa says its office working hours will be extended as of today until the 19th of this month, December. A second extension of the working hours will also take place next year from the 5th to the 16th of January. These extended hours are aimed at helping citizens, non-citizens and visitors with document applications as well as collections. The extension applies to all Home Affairs branches nationwide. Tato Letsaba reports.
With holiday travel set to get underway from this weekend, the Department of Home Affairs says it will keep its offices open longer to ease the festive rush. For the next 2 weeks, branches will close at 6 p.m. instead of 4 p.m., with the same extended hours returning in January for another 2 weeks. December is South Africa's busiest travel season as thousands journey across provinces and borders to reunite with family or head to holiday destinations. Longer operating hours are aimed at allowing citizens to apply or collect passports, IDs, and other emergency documents needed for smooth travel. Bookings must be made in advance through the branch appointment booking system before visiting a branch.
Amnesty International South Africa has reiterated its call for the implementation of specific legislation to protect those advocating for human rights. This follows the assassinations of Marius van der Merwe, known as Witness D, over the weekend. Van der Merwe's testimony before the Madlanga Commission last month contributed towards uncovering allegations of criminality and corruption in the police service. His killing has renewed calls for improved protection of whistleblowers and witnesses. Amnesty International South Africa spokesperson Genevieve Quintal says a government must develop and adopt domestic legislation.
And we've been advocating for legislation, very specific legislation that targets what we call human rights defenders. This includes whistleblowers. It includes you and me. It includes anyone in this country who is standing up for rights for themselves, rights for their communities. In terms of the UN Human Rights Declaration, they all should be provided protection mechanisms. And this goes then beyond witness protection or only whistleblower legislation. We're saying that, we need a more specific legislation that protects a wider group of people.
Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
At 7 minutes past 9, let's continue with the show and talk about this. African petroleum regulators selecting Nigeria as the headquarters of their newly established body and confirmed Benga Kamolafe, head of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, as its chair. Kamolafe, who had been serving in an acting capacity, was formally elected during the inaugural Executive Committee meeting of the African Petroleum Regulators Forum, held virtually with representatives from 16 countries in attendance. What does Nigeria's selection of AfriPerf's headquarters reveal about its growing regional influence in Africa's oil and gas regulatory landscape? Well, Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Samosa has more on that.
According to Benga Komolafe, head of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, the initiative lays the groundwork for a more harmonized and collaborative regulatory environment across Africa. Meanwhile, integrated energy specialist Dr. Davis Tikai says the development is a significant milestone not only for Nigeria but for the continent as a whole.
Nigeria has always aimed or has had ambitions to be a regional energy hub, and hosting AfriPerf in Abuja confirms that role and sets the stage for more harmonized regulations across the continent. So what does this mean in practice? It means African regulators can start working toward unified standards, best practices, instead of fragmented rules, and we could see a consistent regulations and coordinated oversight. This makes cross-border petroleum projects easier to manage. In the bigger picture, having AfriPerf headquartered in Nigeria creates a focal point for regulatory integration.
How might Benga Komolafe's leadership shape efforts to harmonize petroleum regulations across the 16 participating African countries? Dr. Tikai explains.
Engineer Komolafe's leadership of AfriPerf is expected to be a game changer for Africa's upstream oil and gas sector. As interim chair, now confirmed chair, he was very instrumental in creating the forum with a clear goal: attracting more investment by standardizing regulations across member countries. Under his guidance, AfriPerf focused on consistent and transparent rules in every jurisdiction. The idea is simple: a unified, investor-friendly regulatory framework will boost confidence and unlock new capital inflows. Komolofe himself highlighted that the forum offers a unique opportunity to improve investor confidence by harmonizing policies and tackling common challenges.
He also shared the impact this could have on investment flows, transparency, and the future of upstream oil development on the continent.
Massive potential and economic benefits of a coordinated petroleum regulatory framework, and member countries of AfriPerf stand to reap substantial economic benefits from a more coordinated and unified petroleum regulatory framework. Some of these advantages or benefits include increased foreign investment and growth, transparency and governance improvements, knowledge sharing and capacity building, cross-border projects and energy security, and stronger collective bargaining power, positioning not only Nigeria but the African continent as that is power hub or regional energy hub.
With Nigeria now hosting AfriPEF and providing leadership through Benga Komolafe, many believe the continent is taking a decisive step towards stronger coordination in its oil and gas sector. As stakeholders watch how this new framework unfolds, expectations are high that it will unfold greater stability, transparency, and shared growth across Africa's energy landscape. For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Simos in Johannesburg.
Now, South Africa's long-standing solidarity with the Palestinian people has taken an unexpected turn and is triggering fresh political debate at home and abroad. The Department of Home Affairs has officially withdrawn visa-free entry for Palestinian passport holders, saying the privilege was being abused following a recent charter flight controversy involving travellers from Gaza. The move marks a sharp policy shift for a country that has positioned itself as one of Palestine's strongest global allies, and it raises urgent questions about migration control, diplomacy, and South Africa's broader geopolitical commitments. We speak now to Dr. Ahmed Jazbai from UNISA Politics Department. Dr. Jazbai, very good evening to you. It's good to talk to you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
So, your reading of what happened prior and how we find ourselves in this place, and what exactly does it really mean?
Basically, the two flights that occurred, one at the end of October and one at around the 13th of November, if memory serves me correct. The second one, which triggered a public backlash against arrival of around 170 Palestinians from Gaza. What was uncovered was, the fact that these were unofficially part of Israel's, forced displacement of Palestinians from Gaza. Whilst, many of these Palestinians paid, around $2,000 to go on this chartered flight, they never realized where their end destinations were. So it became clear that, that this was part of Israel's unofficially, because officially they said that, Trump rather said that, no Palestinians will be displaced. But it's clear that Israel has not given up on this idea of forced displacement and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from Gaza, because one of the main giveaways is that, it's impossible to even approach this artificial yellow line as part of the ceasefire deal, let alone get out of Gaza and onto a plane in an Israeli-controlled airport. So whilst there are security issues, around this, we feel that, it is clear that also that the Palestinians are being subjected to the form of collective punishment. And this is something that will need to be analyzed, looked at and interrogated, because whilst Palestinians have very quickly been stripped on their 90-day visa waivers, we see many Israelis that have served in the Israeli Defense Force in Gaza vacation in South Africa. Many South Africans who hold Israeli passports have been part of the genocide in Gaza, yet there's been no revocation of the Israeli 90 days.
So before we go too far, I want to just go back to, so that we are clear of the establishing points as well. You said that some of these who reached South African soil was as a result of them paying for these charters. Whom did they pay? Who was the recipient of these fees? And what was the understanding? Was it a diplomatic deal? Was it something that ended up being a case of political pressure where South Africa then, because of the vocal, role it plays and its vocal defense of the Palestinian rights on international forums, that it found itself having to do to back up its credibility?
The middlemen or organization is a European organization called Al Majd, run by a Israeli Estonian national. It seems to be the middleman organization in this respect, and Palestinians in Gaza were paying around $1,500 to $2,000 to leave Gaza. So how they got that money is another issue to deal with. But and what was happening is that they were given a text the night before and told to come to a certain meeting point, and a bus would take them to Ramon Airport in Gaza under the protection and control of the Israeli army. So once they were on that flight, they went to the flights via, I think it was Kenya, and then they made their way to Johannesburg. And one of the reasons why South Africa was chosen, in my opinion, is because of this 90-day visa waiver agreement that it has. So, and which makes it easier for them to come and seek asylum if they so wish. But many didn't have the required documents, no exit stamps, no accommodation. Many of the documents that are required when one is applying for asylum or a long stay visa. And it turns out that this middleman has also organization did the first flight in October, as well as some other flights to other destinations. We must understand that there have been around 200,000 Palestinian dual nationals with foreign passports that left during the course of the genocide. And in some cases, they were also facilitated by the Al Majd Foundation. But however, the issue is that also South Africa gave clearance to these flights to approach our airspace. And why did they allow it in the first instant, these flights to come in and allow this diplomatic storm to happen?
And why did they not categorically take ownership of them having given acquiescence? Because it seemed at some point that gift of the givers was left out on the lurch, just having to say, this is a humanitarian effort.
These are, you asked a very pertinent question, because these are the pieces of the puzzle that are yet to fall into place. They gave overflight clearance, they gave permission for this charter flight, because no one can fly to any country's airspace without permission from that country. And the permission was granted, but in the Department of Home Affairs press statement, this was not given. The reason for this was not given. All it pointed out to was the issue of security, that it was being abused by Israeli-linked actors and so on. But who was facilitating this within Home Affairs, within the Border Management Authority, within DIRCO perhaps? Who was facilitating this and giving permission for these flights and so on is the $1 million question, and it was not answered, which is why we need to ask more questions as to why South Africa, which is once the bastion of Palestinian solidarity, taking Israel all the way to the ICJ, yet is now stopping visa-free access for Palestinians. So there are many questions that are still left unanswered, and it's incumbent upon us to ask these questions of the BMA and Department of Home Affairs.
But also, more importantly, there is also a shift in terms of global migration, immigration control, legislation, and regulation, really. Is South Africa possibly taking this into consideration? Is it feeling the pinch, the pressure from how other countries are now moving in this regard, which in itself also has its finger pointed at South Africa's own domestic policies?
Yeah, issues of migration has become an international phenomenon, and it's become more pronounced, under the presidency of Donald Trump and so on. And many countries are taking their cue from that. And South Africa, on its own, has its own Afrophobic and xenophobic issues to deal with. We have issues of poverty, unemployment, xenophobia, and so on. And these are definitely, in my opinion, contributing factors. But there are many questions that are, left unanswered. Why were the Palestinians singled out? Why were the overflight clearance given, as I said? So these questions must be answered. If you cannot provide answers for these questions, then, this is a form of collective punishment. There are many Palestinians who are due to arrive, for conferences, for legitimate visits, and so on, now, who are being now subjected to the normal visa regimen. So yes, there is this issue of migration and tighter borders and so on. And I think perhaps even the makeup of the GNU has something to do with it, because we do know that Home Affairs is under the stewardship of the DA, which has a less than cozy stance on the Palestinian issue, and the DA's support base is to some extent very anti-Palestinian, pro-Zionist, and so on. So these issues have to be considered. So there's these larger geopolitical, domestic political issues. The GNU, you have some really overtly pro-Israeli, anti-Palestinian members of cabinet, the Minister of Sports, the DA, the Inkatha Freedom Party, and others are very anti-Palestinian. They've visited Israel during the course of the genocide, members of these parties. So these issues are also coming to play. It is not simply the issues of tighter borders and so on. It's also our domestic political makeup right now, which makes it a bit more difficult for the ANC, which is the majority party in the GNU.
Let me just jump in there and say, because you also raised this issue about how there are wider ramifications for what is happening now in Gaza, with Israel now saying the yellow line is now the borderline. And it goes to the question that you're pointing to about South Africa's posture and consistency thereof in light of it being part of a government of national unity, and the mantle that it's taken upon itself to fight for the dignity and rights to the right to exist of Palestinians. So this is how South Africa is moving. On the one hand, you have Mahmoud Mamdani in New York, who is saying to immigrant New Yorkers that they have a right to not obey with ICE. So what do you foresee then, if you were to do some navel gazing, how this whole issue of the Middle East peace accord, if we're to call it that, and conflict going forward is going to shape up over the next couple of weeks?
There's no doubt, firstly, that South Africa is feeling some sort of heat. The pressure from the United States is building up. So this is perhaps a way to assuage that, to assuage that angle. But coming to the other issues, Zohran Mamdani, the incoming mayor of New York City, has also expressed similar sentiments. But South Africans have got to stay true to its foreign policy principles, its pro-Palestinian posture, because this is a central part of the DNA of our foreign policy DNA when it comes to the Palestinian question. There is going to be a lot of pressure from all quarters, from the Israelis. We've seen recently there've been academics, there've been King Daliembo has been there and so on. So there is this PR exercise that is going to happen. But South Africa has to remain consistent in this regard. But it's going to become more difficult, with the ANC's power is going to decrease, and other members of the GNU are going to flex their muscles a little more. So going forward, it will be very interesting to see how government, whether it remains consistent in this regard. I think we're too far down when it comes to the ICJ case to withdraw now, but on other issues, will it compromise on other issues? It's already now withdrawn or suspended visa-free access for Palestinians. On other issues, it seems to taking a softer stance on Ukraine and so on. Although I may be digressing, but it going forward, yeah.
So beyond the case of whether or not South Africa has a spine, will maintain a spine, what about the humanitarian implications of this? The UN Secretary General, the UN itself, has said, this is one of the worst humanitarian cases that we're seeing across the world, that and the Sudan. What happens then if countries like South Africa, which would have been a cushioning effect for Palestinians who are fleeing the bombardment and are not able to reach South Africa? What happens then? And the question still remains, who would have paid? Why would have there been such a smooth entry for there are millions who are being attacked and are dying? Who are these special select people who are able to pay for refuge?
I strongly believe that Israel has not given up on this idea of pushing Palestinians towards the Sinai, the Egyptian Sinai, some towards Jordan as well, and perhaps other areas. Whoever's willing to take Palestine in. We've heard murmurings of South Sudan and other areas in Africa that were approached to take in Palestinians and so on. So I don't think Israel has given up on that. What the post, since it's the so-called ceasefire, I wouldn't call it a peace plan, but rather a move from a full-blown genocide to an incremental genocide, as Ilan Papa points out, is that now instead of trying to, it has suspended the plan of pushing Palestinians from Gaza into the Sinai, and instead trying to get them on these, so-called voluntary migration flights. So, and that's the real tragedy here from this issue, is that the humanitarian situation. They would have been many legitimate Palestinians within those that arrived on those two flights that were seeking asylum, and their cases would be easy to resolve because they're escaping what B'Tselem, Human Rights Watch, the United Nations have argued is a genocide. So it would have been easy for them to claim and be accepted for asylum. And this is a tragedy. This is why I said at onset that it is a form of collective punishment to deny Palestinians. And South Africa is a signatory to the Refugee Convention. So this again is smacks in the face of international law that Palestinians are being denied, to some extent, a legitimate right to claim asylum. So this decision must be reviewed, and to be honest, it must be challenged in the near to distant future.
And better excavated and understood as well, so that we also understand the prism from which we are viewing this, dealing with it. Thank you so much for your time, your insights, Dr. Ahmed Jazbai, who is from UNISA's politics department, speaking to us about South Africa withdrawing visa-free travel for family reunification, medical care, study or safety, some of the reasons that have been given for those who have arrived in South Africa from Palestine, as you heard from Dr. Jazbai, facilitated by a middleman who is working with the Israeli Defense Force. But what South Africa itself is saying, what is the deal behind it? It's not really clear. It's not claiming, nailing its colors to the mast per se, because now it's talking about abuse of a system or an olive branch. I'm not sure what word it's using to describe it. It is exactly 9:30. You're listening to Africa World Hour here on Channel Africa. It's the African perspective.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
29 minutes to 10. We continue with Africa World Hour. This time we talk about South Africa and Australia. They're deepening their tourism and trade ties with the launch of a new direct flight route between Johannesburg and Perth. Government officials say the increased seat capacity will support tourism growth, unlock new investment opportunities, and strengthen people-to-people links across the two regions. The announcement was made at a joint briefing hosted by Qantas, South Africa's tourism, and the Gauteng Tourism Authority in Johannesburg. Channel Africa's Lebogang Mabange was there.
South Africa says improved air connectivity remains one of the biggest levers to unlock tourism growth on the continent. Speaking at the event, South Africa's Minister of Tourism, Patricia de Lille, said the increased routes support the country's broader tourism strategy.
Increased air connectivity is fundamental to unlock tourism growth and investment. Today's announcement directly aligns with one of the 5 pillars of the Tourism Growth Partnership strategy and plan, and that's ease of access. This includes air routes, visas, and removing the hurdles that can make South Africa a destination of choice for business and leisure.
De Lille added that South Africa's international flight capacity continues to grow, with long-haul and short-haul numbers showing steady recovery.
International seat capacity to South Africa now stands at 8.5 million. That's an increase of 9.1% compared to 2024. So strong supply growth in the second half of the year has also led to double-digit seat increase from June onwards. And of these seats, the 8.5 million, 4.6 million are long-haul routes, while 3.9 million service short-haul routes.
Australia has also highlighted the significance of affordability and availability of seats in rebuilding international travel demand. Australia's Minister for Trade and Tourism, Senator John Farrell, said both countries face similar challenges as long-haul destinations.
The two things that have been most important in rebuilding confidence in the tourism industry has been the price of the fares and the volume of seats. They've been the two impediments, and as the Minister and I discussed this morning, we are both long-haul destinations, so people have to psychologically be prepared to take a long trip if they want to come to South Africa or if they want to come to Australia. And the combination of the more availability, 155,000 new seats now available on this pathway.
Farrell also pointed to growing trade prospects between the two countries, saying a free trade agreement could further expand economic ties.
There are some countries in the world that are discouraging trade. Australia is not one of them. I didn't name anybody. Australia is pro-free and fair trade, and I know South Africa is pro-free and fair trade. And I've given the job to our High Commissioner of very quickly negotiating a free trade agreement so that we can build those connections. We've got this trade connection already, we've got the historical connections, we've got the people-to-people connection. Can you imagine all of the trade that we could do with these new flights with Qantas, bringing fresh Australian produce into Johannesburg?
The new Johannesburg-Perth route will operate year-round, with both governments saying improved connectivity helps position the two destinations for stronger tourism and trade recovery. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Now, authorities are investigating what may be an entire organ harvesting ring after the grisly discovery of human remains believed to be victims of illicit trafficking. Security forces say the find has sent shockwaves across communities, raising urgent questions about organized crime, human rights, and the safety of the vulnerable. As the probe unfolds, many are left asking, how deep does this ring really run, and can justice and protection come soon enough? Stay with us for the latest updates, but we talk about this now with Nigerian political analyst Dr. Olayinka Ajala. A very good evening to you, Dr. Ajala, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
What have you learned about this? What is the latest news on the ground? Is this a suspected organ harvesting ring, or has it been confirmed to be one?
Yes, at this stage, it's still a suspected organ harvesting ring. So after the grim discovery, the policemen and environmental services raided the hotel as well as the private mortuary for the individual. And then today, the home of the person was also raided. And the security operatives added that they found incriminating evidence, but they won't go beyond that. So it's still a live investigation, but it seems like an organized crime syndicate at this stage.
So just give us a bit of background of what was found where, by whom.
Yes, so there was, it started when somebody raised the alarm that illegal activities were being carried out at the hotel. This is in the southeastern part of the country, and it's a region where there have been pockets of issues relating to organ harvesting in the last few years. I think the first discovery was in Anambra State in 2023, and there was another discovery in Abuja the same year. This seemed like isolated events across the country, but it seems the trend is growing, and with the rising insecurity in the country, there are also issues of an increase in trafficking with some of these related to organ trafficking.
And what would be the motive behind it, and the use for this organ harvesting practice? Obviously, as you mentioned, there have been stories, speculation in the past that they're used for occult reasons, etc., etc. Has there been any, speculation that is credible at this point as to what could be behind the motive of this latest incident?
It's twofold, actually. So the first one, which has been in the country for decades, is the harvesting of organs for occultic practices. Some people within the country believe that you could use human organs as voodoo for money-making rituals. And this has been going on sporadically across the country for a long time, for over 2-3 decades. But more recently, we've seen an increase in young men being lured into selling their kidneys as a result of poverty. So there have been 2 or 3 clinics. 2 years ago, 2 doctors and 2 other people were convicted in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, where they were carrying out illegal organ transplants. They lure young people to selling 1 kidney, and then they had people coming in, mostly foreigners and some wealthy individuals within the country, buying these organs. There was also the case of the former Senate president in the country who was arrested in London when he was trying to engage in organ transplant for his daughter. So there have been an increase in these rogue clinics in different parts of the country where they encourage young people to sell their kidney, and some of them then transplant. In the last few years as well, there are also issues across the Sahel. Nigerians trying to cross the Sahel through Niger and Libya, and then across the Mediterranean into Europe. Many of them have also fallen victim. In 2024, there was a clinic that was uncovered deep in the Sahel, where illegal organ transplanting was also taking place. So we've seen an increase in the second part, the other fold, which I mentioned, the ritual one, the occultic one. But more recently, we have seen an increase in illegal medical organ transplants in the country.
And in this case, it's been said that the suspect is known or notorious for being a kidnapper, and I'm just wondering about the connection between the banditry, kidnapping syndicates, and of course human trafficking networks. Has the insecurity just made it fertile ground, I mean Nigeria and some of these far-flung places, for these kinds of activities and trends to grow?
Yeah, there is actually a link between kidnapping and organ transplant. There have been stories of people who were threatened when in the kidnappers' den that if they don't pay and if the families do not pay up within a period, then their organs would be harvested. So there is an increasing link between organized kidnappers who kidnap people for ransom. But sometimes when there are mass kidnappings, for instance, they kidnap people in public transport, they identify the ones who have family members who are able to pay ransom. And for those who are unable to pay ransom, they either sell them on to people who are involved in organ transplants, or they just kill them if they become a liability. So the increase in insecurity, kidnapping, and armed robbery across the country is all linked. Because when people have weapons, they do whatever they want with it. If armed robbery is not working, then they kidnap for ransom. And if they have already kidnapped people and they find out that these people do not have the resources to pay the ransom, then in some instances, we've had stories of people being sold on and having their organs harvested and transplanted.
Given the new security measures that have been announced by President Tinubu and the security forces, is this something that would be of concern, that would receive special attention? Is it on their radar, or is it going to be a blanket approach that is going to deal with insecurity in Nigeria through massive recruitments?
Well, I think the first step is reducing the circulations of arms and ammunition in the country. So the feeling is that if the country is able to reduce the number of non-state actors that have access to illegal weapons, especially automatic rifles, then crimes, banditry will automatically reduce. So the first step is the mechanism whereby the president declared last week a security emergency, and part of the measures was to increase the number of police officers by 20,000, increase the number of military officers. And the first job they've been tasked with is to reduce the circulation of illegal weapons in the country. As we know, the problem increased drastically in 2011 after the killing of Gaddafi and the involvement of NATO, whereby the hundreds of thousands of weapons were dropped and there was no arms mopped up after the killing of Gaddafi. So some of these weapons then spread across the Sahel into West Africa, and some of those weapons are the ones that are still causing havoc till today. So the first step is to reduce the circulation of weapons in the hands of non-state actors, and then begin to tackle individual crimes, because these crimes are linked. So if the government is able to tackle kidnapping, then they can also use the opportunity to reduce the numbers of illegal transplant. But it's not endemic at the moment. I need to state that very clearly. There are pockets and isolated stories, but it's not something that it's on a large scale. So it's not something that. But the syndicates are very strong where they work, but they are not as much as the other issues of banditry and some other forms of insecurity. But it's rising, unfortunately, in the country.
And just finally, in terms of policy and legislation, is there enough, should I say, wherewithal to hold these characters, these protagonists accountable? Because if people seem to be doing it with impunity, it does possibly speak to not only a lack of will, but the ability of the laws in place to be enforced.
Absolutely. They are still very weak legislations. Yes, there are anti-trafficking rules and some other policies to prevent trafficking and to prevent harm to people. But on the whole, the issue of organ harvesting, organ trafficking still does not have very strong legislations. And also, I need to point out the fact that this problem, Cairo, Egypt used to be very notorious for this crime, for illegal organ transplanting for a very long time. It used to be the main base in Africa. But since the legislations kicked in, I think 2 years ago, thereabouts, there have been a reduction in the crime in Cairo. And these people are looking for places where the legislations are slack. So they are looking for areas where they can also get expertise because it's difficult for them to transport organs over a long distance without being detected. So you also need expertise. It's not just about capturing people and just cutting off their organs. You need people that would that have the expertise, medical practitioners that are willing to carry out and remove the organs and then transplant into other people without damaging the organs. So it's a very sophisticated syndicate. And I think with the recent development in the eastern part of the country, the government will take it more seriously to think about the legislations to curb this rising challenge.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to us. Much appreciated. Speaking to us about a criminal network in Nigeria, or trends that seems to point to that of human trafficking, that of organ harvesting. Dr. Olayinka Ajala speaking to us, and that brings the time to 12 minutes to 10.
Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away.
Your world, your stories, now on the go.
Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective. 1 hour, one continent, one voice. Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Google has released its 2025 year in search for South Africa, showing what people in the country try to understand, fix, follow, debate over the past year. The report tracks the fastest rising searches, offering a clear sense of the stories, questions, and moments that shaped public curiosity. The G20, UNISA registration, provincial police commissioner in the KwaZulu-Natal province, General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, the late musician Winnie Khumalo, and the Lion King star Aaron Appiah are just among the top searches in this year's annual Google Trends. On South Africa's search this year, Tutongo Beni goes straight into that.
Google has released its 2025 Year in Search for South Africa report. The report tracks the fastest rising searches, offering a clear sense of the stories, questions, and moments that shaped public curiosity. Artificial intelligence (AI) emerged as another defining theme this year, marking a turning point in how South Africans engaged with search and embedding it more deeply into everyday information seeking behaviors. Siyama Tikane, Communications and Public Affairs Manager at Google South Africa, says this report is a celebration of whatever users are going into their platform.
Well, as you know, Year in Search is our annual look at what people have been searching for, the topics, the people that they've been searching, events, and also places that stood out for the year. Year Search for us is our biggest brand love moment, really sort of a celebration of what our users are going on to our platform. As you know, our company was built on this, mainly on our search platform, and it's something that we celebrate every year, and it's celebrated right across the world. We had our global launch, which is always a great and exciting time, and to be at the company where we share sort of this list right across, and obviously the South African list is focused on all the things that South Africans have been searching on, and yeah, that's what we're doing now. We're celebrating sort of showcasing basically what South Africans have been looking for on the internet using our search engine.
Matikane says their report shows what South Africans are interested in, which includes school-related information, sports, and music.
Year in Search always reveals exactly what South Africans are searching for in the internet. We pull the data straight using a trends tool, straight from the platform itself, and really there what we see is that it's all the things that South Africans are interested in, which includes obviously sports, lots of music, a lot of the arts, and as well as also useful things such as school-related information, especially if you look at the top trends where the search around applications at UNISA is sitting comfortably sort of in the middle of that list. So these are some of the things that are really key for South Africans that we're seeing on the list.
Appearing in the top searches is losses, the recently held G20 Leaders Summit, iPhone 17 Pro Max, the late Muzo Winnie Khumalo, the University of South Africa registration process, and United Kingdom world-acclaimed actor Mufasa star Aaron Pierre.
Aaron Pierre, that's Mufasa. Aaron Pierre, that's Mufasa.
Matikane says even days such as Father's Day and Mother's Day made it onto the top list.
Temu, the sort of platform that e-commerce platform is at number 1. General Mkwanas, we know that delivered that speech on the 6th of July, is at number 2. 8 Day was at number 3. ChatGPT was at the free version was at number 4, and then Google Gemini, our own Google Gemini tool, was at number 5, meaning that the people out there were looking more and more to use this very much a helpful tool. As I said already, UNISA registration was at number 6. In terms of top actresses, Aaron Pierre has become a household name. Jason Statham is always on everybody's mouth with his movies, all action movies. Tyler Perry had a few releases this year. Miles Teller, Jacob Elordi, Josh Duhamel, Dave Batista, and then obviously Presley Chinahai was also a late actor who was well known for having won that Oscar with Fototsi, and then Pakodi Pumodi. And then Donham Langin, who also lost this year, comes in at number 9 in terms of the most searched actors and actresses. Yeah, and that's about it. I think really key. Of course, there's also some sports moments as top recipes as well. There's also the top when is searches, which is things such as when is Father's Day, when is Mother's Day. People trying to sort of finding the tool useful to sort of find answers to some of the most pertinent questions, but also helping them overcome some of the challenges that they face in their everyday lives.
For Channel Africa News, I am Tutongo Beni in Johannesburg.
And at 6 minutes to 6, let's find out now from Shayla and Tukumana what's coming up on African Diaries this here week, this Monday.
Ma'am, how are you?
Why don't you tell us, how are you?
I'm glowing, clearly.
Because
listening in the twilight.
Levitate studio. Yeah?
I am good. I'm very good.
Looking good.
Thank you very much.
Smells good too.
Oh ma'am. Do not make me blush on a Monday. Speaking about blushing, today we are focusing on self-love. And we're going to be talking about introversion. For some strange reason, people believe that you being an introvert is a protecting of self. Are you of the same school of thought?
I mean, it sounds like it's contrived when somebody says I'm protecting myself. I'm an introvert because I'm protecting myself. You're either an introvert or you're not, bruh. I don't know. That's what I think.
So it's the I don't want to be in crowded spaces. I don't want to be in environments that are clustered with different kinds of energies.
That's antisocial behavior.
So what is an introvert?
I think an introvert is somebody who naturally is, inward focused, inward living, inward. I don't think it's something that they choose to be.
Yes.
It's just their true nature. And there are people, there are introverted extroverts and they're extroverted introverts.
That's my problem. What is that now? There are calibers to this thing, and then there are ambiverts, and then how does it all function then?
So you can be extroverted while being an introvert, but it's not like you are extroverted in chas and che. There are situations that allow you to come out of your little shell, and you exhibit what would be said to be extroverted characters.
Yeah.
And then you can be an extrovert, but pila, you're shy. You're actually, and you see, like, that's where people get confused. Jobs like ours, when you go out into the space and people are like, yo, Kanti, but it's just a function of the job. We're so used to filling silence. We're so used to ensuring that interviews happen, making people feel engaged, making people, feel like they ought to be open so that we can get the business of the business done. It's functional.
So I always thought that being introverted is that you are receptive to energy, and being extroverted means that you emit energy. So you would fill up a room with your energy, whereas an introvert is more receptive to what the room has to offer. And this is why they would then fall back from crowds. Because the idea is I don't want to be receptive to all of these emotions and feelings that come with the energy in the room. So we talk about that, how introverts survive the festive season. What do you do? I get the feeling that you're an introvert, extrovert, or is it extrovert, introvert?
I'm an extroverted introvert.
Yeah. How do you survive the festive season?
That's a funny thing. I find myself in a space where I'm supposed to be doing something, putting together something for somebody. And I'm like, Lord Jesus, I don't know how to do this. I know me. I just chill back, book, lunch, and I keep saying, so like, what kind of thing is going to work? I'm at a loss. So, yes. I'm going to have to come out of my shell.
Yes.
This festive season. Okay.
Okay.
Like, you don't know me. Please.
You don't know what's going on. Just keep it stepping. So that's the conversation of the first hour. Then in the second hour, we're going to be speaking to a 20-year-old who at every given opportunity gives back.
Oh, that's amazing.
Birthdays, he gives back. Holidays, this festive season, he would gather communities and crowds and he would say, listen, let's do an initiative, a food drive, or something.
I love him already.
Right?
An attitude of service. I find that so admirable.
Sure. And that's what comes up on the show.
And that's how we come to the end of Africa World Hour. And I'm just going to have a sidebar with Sheila off air about this video, because we actually have to caucus it before we caucus it. Okay? All right. That's how we come to the end of Africa World Hour. Thank you so much for joining us. Do enjoy the rest of your listening, your viewing here on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Tsepiso Makwetla brings it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m. Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website,